Before oil was discovered and successfully exploited, Saudi Arabia was a poor land. Although Abdul al-Aziz's power increased after the unification of the kingdom, he had to struggle to make ends meet. In 1933, Saudi Arabia government contracted Rockefeller's Standard Oil of California to run its oil venture. Oil concession agreement was signed, which forms California Arabian Standard Oil Company to manage the concession. After John D. Rockefeller, founder of the Standard Oil Company, one of the wealthiest men in the world, passed away in 1937, the Standard Oil Company struck oil in Dammam Well No. 7, now known as Dara, at Jafurah in 1938. Immediately, the oil exports started in 1939. In 1944, KAZOC was renamed as the Arabian American Oil Company. Later, Rockefeller-owned companies, Exxon and Mobil, purchased 40% of the company that leads oil production to 4.5 million barrels per day. In 1952, the Arabian American Oil Company moved its headquarters from New York to Dara. In 1976, it becomes the world's leading oil producer in terms of volume produced in a single year. In 1980, Saudi government increases its participation interest in the crude oil concession rights, production and facilities to 100%. In 1988, Saudi Arabian Oil Company is officially established. Saudi Aramco. Officially, the Saudi Arabian Oil Company, or simply Aramco, is Saudi Arabian Public Petroleum and Natural Gas Company based in Dhahran. As of 2020, it is one of the largest companies in the world by revenue. Saudi Aramco has both the world's second largest crude oil reserves at more than 270 billion barrels, which is 43 billion cubic meters, and the largest daily oil production of all oil-producing companies. It is the single greatest contributor to global carbon emissions of any company in the world since 1965. On 11 May 2022, Saudi Aramco became the largest or the most valuable company in the world by market cap, surpassing Apple. Saudi Aramco operates the world's largest single hydrocarbon network, the Master Gas System. In 2013, crude oil production total was 3.4 billion barrels, and it manages over 100 oil and gas fields in Saudi Arabia, including 288 million standard cubic of natural gas reserves. Saudi Aramco operates the Gawa field, the world's largest onshore oil field, and Safaniya field, the world's largest offshore oil field. On 11 December 2019, the company's shares commenced trading on the Tadawul Stock Exchange. The shares rose to 35 Saudi riyals, giving it a market cap of about $1 trillion and surpassed $2 trillion Mark on the second day of trading. In the 2020 Forbes Global 2000, Saudi Aramco was ranked as the 5th largest public company in the world. In March 2021, Saudi Aramco announced that earnings in 2020 fell by nearly 45% compared with 2019, as lockdowns around the world followed with oil demand. Saudi Aramco's history goes back more than 80 years to the sands of the Saudi desert, where they are driven by the lack of resources to explore. Saudi Aramco traces its beginning to 1933, when a concession agreement was signed between Saudi Arabia and the Rockefeller's Standard Oil Company of California, a subsidiary company. The California Arabian Standard Oil Company was created to manage the agreement. From the late 1940s, Saudi Aramco grew from strength to strength, hitting record-breaking oil production milestones. Along the way, Saudi Aramco made Saudi Arabia famous for its energy. Throughout the 1970s, Saudi Aramco not only proved itself as an economic force for Saudi Arabia, but it also returned to the Saudi Arabian heritage. In 1973, the Saudi government bought a 25% interest in Aramco, increasing their interest to 60% the following year. Throughout the 1990s, Saudi Aramco gradually extended its ties and partnerships across the world, making several international investments, starting with the purchase in 1991 of a 35% interest in Sangyong Oil Refining Company, renamed as S-Oil in 2000, in the Republic of Korea. Leading up to the millennium, Saudi Aramco uses advanced techniques to help itself to discover and extract the crude oil. By the early 2000s, Saudi Aramco continued to diversify even further to achieve its vision of becoming the world's leading integrated energy and chemical enterprise. On 21st March 2021, Saudi Aramco signed an agreement to secure China's energy supplies for the next 50 years, and also to develop new technologies to combat climate change. More recently, they signed a deal with a consortium led by EIG. In July 2021, Saudi Aramco appointed former HSBC Holdings plc Chief Executive Officer Stuart Gulliver to the company's board of directors. In October 2021, Saudi Aramco announced plans to achieve net zero carbon emissions from its wholly owned operations by 2050. In 2021, The Guardian reported that Aramco was not trying to diversify at the same rate as other oil companies, such as Shell and BP. Rather, Aramco announced in 2021 that the company intended to increase crude capacity from 12 million barrels a day to 13 million barrels by 2027. In February 2022, following crude's ascent to nearly $95 per barrel, Saudi Arabia's Aramco boosted oil prices for clients in Asia, the United States and Europe. In August 2022, Saudi Aramco announced that it would acquire Valvoline's petroleum unit for $2.5 billion. On 18 November 2007, reports came out that a natural gas pipeline explosion had taken the lives of several workers. The death toll was later determined to be 35. Aramco asserts it was a purely maintenance-related incident. Saudi Aramco was negligent in handling its COVID-19 infection. According to the employee's family, he had been asking the company and authorities for help 3 weeks before his death, but he was simply asked to keep his gloves and make a mask on. Saudi Aramco did not formally contact his family until approximately 14 hours after his death, refused to release his body, and allegedly erased information from his mobile phone. His grieving family had to do without financial support for almost 5 months and only received $400,000 benefits, back pay, and insurance after the Financial Times had started asking questions. In the same article, 5 whistleblowers accused Aramco of bullying and mismanagement. One former employee expressed his concerns about the company's highly dangerous failure to pressure test valves and mains units, detailing cracks in the refinery structure and sinking of roads and foundations. The refinery runs a real risk of becoming Aramco's piper alpha, said another expatriate employee, who also accuses Aramco of lacking a culture of challenge, facilitating ineptitude and laziness. In March 2020, Saudi Aramco came under fire after photos of migrant workers dressed as a large hand sanitizer dispenser went viral on social media. People on Twitter condemned the act as modern-day slavery, humiliating, and dehumanizing. According to the company, the display was organized without the approval of Aramco officials. In 2019, sources told the Financial Times that wealthy families in Saudi Arabia had been coerced into joining the Saudi Aramco IPO. According to analysts, Aramco could realistically reach a market cap of 1 to 1.5 trillion, but the Saudis wanted to treat 2 trillion. Oddly, many of those who signed up have relatives that were part of the 2017 to 2019 Saudi Arabian purge. According to 4 sources, the Saudi government strong-armed, coerced or bullied some of the wealthiest families in the kingdom into becoming cornerstone investors. Saudi Aramco's majority shareholder is the government of Saudi Arabia, where human rights are a matter of concern. Saudi Arabia abstained from the United Nations vote adopting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, saying it contradicted Sharia law. The country holds a reservation to the Convention on the Rights of the Child against any provisions that conflict with Sharia law. The government has been accused of routinely using torture and of violently oppressing critics, women, along with other social groups. After United States, Saudi Arabia is the second largest oil producer, contributes 11% share of the total world oil production. Oil includes crude oil, which is vital to create food preservatives, all other petroleum liquids and biofuels. This lucrative petroleum trade fostered sophisticated diplomatic relations between Saudi Arabia and the West, as well as Japan, China, and Southeast Asia. Before the discovery made by the company Trillion would eventually become Chevron, Saudi Arabians were largely nomadic. The country's economy was based on tourism revenue from observant Muslims' pilgrimages to the holy city of Mecca. After the discovery, Saudis established strong infrastructure dotted with wells, pipelines, refineries, and ports. Today, oil accounts for roughly 92% of the Saudi budget. The discovery of oil also changed the demographics of the kingdom. Today, millions of foreign workers from the United States, India, Pakistan, Ethiopia, and the Middle East live and work in Saudi Arabia. From private-owned enterprises to state-owned enterprise. Quoted from the book Spectre of Communism, in theory, state ownership means that the wealth of a country is shared by all citizens. But in practice, it means that the privileged class monopolizes economic resources and uses authoritarian political power to keep the rest of the population in line. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has transferred 4% of state-run oil giant Aramco, which is about $80 billion stake, to the Public Investment Fund, PIF. Revenue is highly exposed to crude oil, as you can see here. High free cash flow, even more than Apple Incorporation, $107 billion at the end of 2021 and $110 billion at the end of third quarter 2022. $349 billion of revenue, but out of this amount of revenue, $147 billion is contributed to the government of Saudi Arabia in the form of income taxes, which is about 50%, and royalties as well as dividends. Today we have Maxima, One Firm CEO here as our special guest. Max, what do you think about Saudi Aramco? Like, how would you analyze it?
From the data, I can see about 90% of Saudi Aramco revenue is coming from crude oil. So basically, now we look at the crude oil price. Okay, if you were to hold buy crude oil, okay, at the lowest price, about $15 in 1987, okay, until 2022, the peak price is about $123. That means every $1,000 you invest in this is going to return into 7 times more. It is more than $7,000. But from here we can see that the crude oil price is highly volatile. It's highly volatile in the sense that in 2020 we can see that the lowest it go is around $11. So that means is the range. The range here is like from $11 to $122, $23, $123 within this 2 years time. So it's highly volatile. So I think probably you need more money in order to invest in this. And also the price is very important, your entry price.
Okay, so Mac's suggestion is that Saudi Aramco is highly exposed to crude oil, so it is as volatile as Bitcoin. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah, it might be the case because 90% of the income come from crude oil.
Okay, so that you that's why you suggest investors, only those who have a higher capital amount, try in this.
Higher capital amount, and also try to diversify, and also probably you can treat this as part of your portfolio.
Okay, and then you also think that the entry price will be is very important whether the investors decide to enter into this market as well, because it fluctuates really a lot. Like what you said, like from $11 to what?
$123 within this 3 years time.
Within 3 years time.
2 years time.
Yeah. So it is highly volatile. So it's like about 10 times, right? 10 times of the amount, 11 to 100 plus. Within 2 years, it can fluctuate from 11 to 100 plus, 100 plus to 11. So that is crazy. Okay. Please subscribe, like, and comment down below. What do you think about Saudi Aramco? What do you think this company is? Is it like a really giant oil company that contributes a lot of economic impact and as well as social impact, good impact to the world, or it's just another greedy company that has more negative impact to the world? So it's really up to you to discuss, alright? So that is all from us. Thank you for watching. See you next time.
See you.